Good evening. Welcome back to part 3 of today's episode of From Day 1. As we grab the mailbox, we immediately head off to Sally Vanderveer and Art Bell for part 3 of their medical marijuana talk.
Now we're seeing the reverse, where business people don't know how to grow, so we need to teach them how to grow responsibly in these states.
Is it because it's an all cash business? That is a burden. I really do get that. Is that one of the toughest parts of what you do right now? The fact that it's a cash deal all the way around?
Incredibly tough. And imagine being a new business wanting to get into the marijuana industry. You can't get a loan. You need to buy a $2 million building to house your cultivation facility, and you have to come up with cash.
Wow.
You cannot get there's very few people in this industry who can get a loan. We've been very creative. We have our own investor network, so we have qualified investors who are willing to come into this space. We had to do a loan a couple of years back to finish out a cultivation, and we had to pay our investors 18%.
Okay, I'm dominating you, and I can't do that. All the lines are full and everything. Frank, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you for taking my call.
Sure.
I'd like to make the comment that there's only one class of drugs that is physically addictive, and the government is doing the public a great disservice through the miscategorization of drugs, because opioids or narcotics are physically addicting. Marijuana, cocaine, ecstasy, all the other drugs are not physically addictive, maybe emotionally, but not physically. But the public is led to believe through the scheduling of drugs that marijuana, for example, is equivalent to heroin. And they're not. They're two totally different classification of drugs.
Well, preaching to the choir here.
I agree. And the hardest part for me to swallow about marijuana being on Schedule 1 is that part of the criteria is that there is no currently accepted medical use. And even Sanjay Gupta said that he surveyed physicians in the United States. 76% of physicians would prescribe marijuana. So that tells me physicians know that it's useful. There is an accepted medical use. We just can't study it. We just can't prove it.
Right. The drug war is the longest war in the history of the United States and the most expensive. And at some point, we have to say to ourselves, we're doing something wrong. We need to rethink our strategy.
Well, that's for sure. Sally, how many people in jail in the U.S. now for pot? Any idea?
No idea, but I do know that it's disproportionately, the jails are disproportionately filled with African American or minority people who have been convicted of marijuana possession crimes.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a socioeconomic. It touches on all levels of society. The wrongs.
Whatever it is, it's a big number, and it costs a lot of money to keep people in jail. It is extremely expensive. All right, we are at this short break, so Sally, hold on. We'll be right back. This is Midnight in the Desert. I'm Art Bell.
And again, we'll be back as soon as they finish their musical bumper to avoid YouTube copywriting. As we continue with Bitey and Chapter 8.
In the high desert, this is Midnight in the Desert with Art Bell. Please ring Art's bell at 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952. Call Art.
I hate it when he stutters. That's 1952-CALL-ART. The other numbers that I'm using, if you want to jump in this way, the Roswell entrance point at area code 575-208-7787. That's a number you can call in Roswell that will ring here. And then, of course, our first-time caller line, area code 775-285-5800. Skype, MITD51 in North America, MITD55 outside the country. Sally Vanderveer is here. We're talking marijuana where it's legal. there in Colorado, and it's been a very, very, very interesting discussion. And here we go right back to it, Sally, because a lot of people have a lot of questions. Austin is next. Austin?
Hello, Art. How's it going, man?
Very well, thank you.
I just want to say Mad Roswell's and a big shout out to Belgap, and a quick question for Sally.
Yes.
I've had a few experiences with marijuana in my time. I'm about 21 years old, and I've smoked it a few times. And I don't know if this is normal, but usually when I do marijuana, I'm sexually active. Is that a normal response to marijuana, or is that kind of unique? That's my question. I'll take it off the air.
All right. Actually, I'm going to redo your question for you. Sally, does marijuana enhance the sexual experience?
It can. So in some people it does. It may make them more amorous. And in other people, and I guess depending on the strain that you smoke, it may just make you not interested at all. So depending on what you're looking for, it can be a good experience or a bad experience. But
for a lot of people, marijuana enhances the sexual experience, but also others. And really, we didn't talk about this, but I mean, listening to music, as an example.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I hear that all the time, that it takes it to a whole other level, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yes. My sister works with me as well. She's a bud tender, and a bud tender is what we call a person who serves the customers like a bartender or a barista. And she has specific strains that she can recommend to people depending on what concert they're going to.
No
so
kidding.
She's one of those connoisseurs. So she can say, oh, you're going to a Fish concert? Yes, you have to have G6.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this. These different strains, 81, I think you mentioned, do they really apply that differently? In other words, is one just great for music in general, and another great for sex in general, or great for, and then there's sort of an upper, let's see, how can I put this? Along with the high, you kind of get a little up, like you had a good cup of coffee or something, and then versus a little bit down or sleepy marijuana. All those?
Yeah. So there's two types of marijuana. There's a sativa, which is more of a head high, cerebral. That's the one that's going to make you clean your house and makes music sound great and might make you anxious, might make you paranoid. And there's an indica, and that'll make you sleepy. That's really great for pain. And then there's a spectrum between sativa and indica, and those are called hybrid. And for the most part, every strain that we grow now is a hybrid. So you can have a sativa dominant hybrid of varying proportions. So it could be maybe, 80% sativa, 20% indica. And depending on where that strain falls in the spectrum between sativa and hybrid is how you're going to feel your effect. There's other things that come into play, like different components, CBC, CBD, CBGA. There's all of those different components I was talking about that are in different percentages in each plant or each strain.
Well, there really is a lot to know about marijuana, isn't there?
Yeah, and the great thing is for what we know, there's probably 100 times more that we don't know that is just going to, unravel and blow everyone's mind eventually.
My guest, too, Jay, you're on with Sally Vanderveer. Hi.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yeah, you sound great. What a connection. This Skype thing, I'm down.
I know, it's good.
It is, and I'll skip over all the praise and whatnot, but I'm sure glad to hear you again.
Thank you.
And but anyway, Sally, on the capitalization issue, I'm curious how well you were capitalized going in when you started up.
Oh.
We were undercapitalized. So my brothers had this business plan, and they went to my mother, and they said, all we need is $150,000. That's all we need. So they got that, and then a couple months in, they said, oh, crap. And that's just like really when you start any business, right? Take what you think you're going to need and multiply it by 2 or 3 or 4. So at the end, to get off the ground, I think they we started with about 600,000, and then we self-funded for the most part all of our expansion until very late in 2013, when we needed to expand to fulfill the requirements that were coming with recreational marijuana. So we did one round of investing through the ArcView network, which is an investor network specifically for the marijuana industry.
I was going to ask how Mom stood up there as the, 200,000, 300,000, 400,000. At some point, Mom says, "Listen, kids."
My mom's the sweetest lady, and she's like, "Okay, how much more do you need?" It was one of those kind of things. So blind faith in her children, which has paid off for her, so that's a good thing.
Yes. Amazing. What a mom. That's what I would say. Okay, you're on the air, I think in Bloomington somewhere or another.
Hi, yes. Love listening to the show. I have a few questions for Sally that I have come up with while I'm working.
Okay, go ahead. You're Bloomington, Illinois, probably, right?
Yep.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Okay, so Sally, I think, I'm pretty sure she said that she was in the pharmaceutical business before the marijuana business,
That's
right?
correct, yes.
Okay, so I'm also in the pharmaceutical business and deal with a lot of pharmaceuticals every night. I'm very young. I get to learn as I work about, the different effects of narcos and the other drugs. And one of them that I had come across was a drug called dronabinol. Sally, would you know anything about this drug?
Is that the synthetic marijuana? It's man-made cannabis, so that's more for appetite, helping to increase appetite. I think that's what you're talking about, right?
Yeah.
Hopefully it's not this stuff that's driving people nuts that they're selling.
No, that's spice. That's awful. Yeah, that's something, yeah.
Okay, so Illinois is, I do not believe, well, actually I take it back. About a month ago, Illinois has made it legal for medicinal uses for marijuana, and they had just started opening dispensaries around. And I was wondering why this drug dronabinol is never brought up when they talk about medicinal marijuana.
No, I don't know. They're different drugs, right? Different drugs, right, Sally?
Is man-made, right? So it's a synthetic marijuana. So while I don't know anything about its effectiveness, it's still a Schedule I drug.
Yeah.
I don't know why the state isn't bringing that up or why it's not being prescribed. My guess is that, insurance companies aren't covering that. I don't know why it's not more widely used.
Okay. All right. It does bring up another subject, Sally.
Okay.
The detractors, they're not here on the phone yet. But one major argument will be it's a slippery slope. In other words, it's a gateway drug. That's the big phrase, I believe, which will then, before you know it, have people doing cocaine and heroin and God knows what else. And you respond to that how?
Well, unfortunately, we're linked to being a great gateway drug because people who have addictive personalities tend to be addicted or they have risky behavior. So they may start with marijuana and move on. I don't think that marijuana is a gateway drug. It's really difficult to defend that because, again, not a lot of studies to do that. But when addicts tell their histories, a lot of the stories begin with marijuana. But is it the chicken before the egg, right? There's a strong correlation between marijuana and other drug use. But is that an addictive personality or is it a correlation to the drug?
Yeah, not sure.
It's not determined. So my guess would be no. I know plenty of people who only smoke marijuana. I don't know what the percentages are, but I would say that, people who engage in risky behaviors would probably start with marijuana.
To me, it's kind of like saying milk is a gateway food.
I would agree, but I'm sure there are many people who don't.
No, many. And since I wasn't sure we'd hear from them, I thought I'd bring it up myself. All right, Silverdale, Washington, I think you're on air.
Yeah, I want to ask something about, I have a grower in Washington near me, and his place has just become, it's sort of like in a rural neighborhood setting, and it's become like a war zone over there with barbed wire fence rolled everywhere and chopped down trees and cameras on all the tops of the trees that have been chopped off and everything. Mm-hmm. And the neighbor and I've wondered, what is that all about? Is he trying to guard the plants? What's he doing over there? Because he's already got such criminal history in the first place.
Wait a minute. Whoa. You're in Washington, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so pot growing. Wait a minute. Pot growing is legal in Washington, right?
It is, and ever since he put that in, he used to be a landscaper, and ever since he put in the facility at his old home, it's turned into kind of like a bizarre thing. The neighbors have to call the police all the time because he's shooting guns off over there.
Why?
I have no idea.
Why would they shoot guns? No, why shoot guns?
Yeah, it's very well. He's got problems anyway, but I just was wondering.
You're telling me he's legally growing marijuana in Washington?
Yeah, legal.
And he's shooting guns off on his property.
Yeah. Oh yeah, all the time, and he's got problems anyway in the past, but they gave him a license, and we can't figure out. Nobody wants to go over there, so all the neighbors now are figuring out why in the world does he do this fortress thing, and the police have said we don't know what's going on because we know he's got to grow over there. It's legal, and so we don't bother him. Nobody bothers him, but it's like a fortress, and we're like, what in the world does he try to protect over there? Nobody wants to go over there and do anything.
Okay, Sally?
Yeah, it's really odd to me. If he is, in fact, a licensed cultivator, I can say that the cameras and the barbed wire are probably his attempt to comply with whatever the state safety regulations are. Or they sound remedial. I'm concerned that he may not be a licensed grower because typically that wouldn't be allowed in a residential or even semi-populated rural area like that. So there may be a medical enforcement division phone number that you could call to find out what's going on. It just doesn't that wouldn't happen in Colorado, I'll tell you that.
Sally, so you and your brothers aren't firing off long rifles on the property a lot, right?
We are not. We do not do that regularly.
Your license would be gone so quickly.
My license could go for the simplest of reasons. There's no way I would shoot off a firearm.
I understand,
a little sketchy to me.
It did sound a little sketchy, but it may well be that he's illegal. Who knows?
Yeah. Sorry about that. That gives us all a bad name.
Yeah, that's not good. DeLand, Florida, is that right?
Hi, Art.
Hi, welcome to the program.
Hi, this is Edie. Thank you. This is Edie from DeLand, Florida.
Great.
I just love you. Thank you for coming back on the air.
Thank you.
Great show.
Thank you.
I have a question. I don't think anybody's brought up industrial uses for marijuana. If Sally knows anything about those, like biodiesel, paper, fibers, clothing, and what impact it would have on our environment.
Yeah, the hemp.
Yeah. The hemp, right? And they've got a whole other battle in the United States. Hemp used to be a required crop in the 1600s. You had to grow it. It was traded. It was currency. Hemp was currency. But again, all of the lobby pushed hemp aside when the paper people came in. Hemp right now, I think, could be a huge industry. A lot of uses for hemp. It's a very easy crop to grow. It can be harvested and used economically. So I really am supporting the hemp growers and the hemp lobby at this point. But they are fighting the same fight we are. Mm-hmm. And hemp, right now, the crop will be destroyed if the hemp tests higher than 0.3% THC.
Wow.
So you can grow, acres and acres of hemp and cross your fingers that you don't pass, you don't breach that tolerance. And if you do, you have to destroy everything. it's just a random number assigned to hemp. So I think that'll be another great American industry.
What a world. All right, Sean, you're on the air with Sally. Hi.
So I have a question. Now that Colorado has...
Can I ask you a question first? Are you on the speakerphone, sir?
I am, sorry.
Okay, please get off the speakerphone and go to the phone itself for us, if you would.
Okay. I wonder if there'll be less people vaccinating babies now.
Vaccinating babies?
Yes.
Okay, back on the speakerphone again. Please don't do that.
Sorry, it's just not working out for me.
Uh-huh. Why would you say, are there... What is your comment?
I'm saying it tongue-in-cheek, Art. Now that there's a lot more marijuana smokers, there'd be a lot more hippies and a lot less vaccinated babies.
Oh.
I can debate that. If you come into my store and look at the demographics of the people, or if you look at the demographics of people who purchase in my store, you would, it looks like middle America. I see 50% of people who use marijuana are over the age of 50.
Really?
Really. And when you walk into my store, you see more gray hair than you do non-gray hair. Not always, but it's, there's a strong subculture, but there's soccer moms, there's doctors, lawyers, police officers, people that come in to get their medicine or to get their marijuana to relax with. So there is no stereotype anymore of a marijuana smoker.
Okay. I say it tongue-in-cheek anyway. I count myself part of the hippie community. And I'm glad to see it legalized. But seriously, I think this is our red pill. Just how many people smoke, and then they get like-minded as far as being kind to one another and so forth. So I think it connects us somewhere else, and it gives us all that hive mind.
I like that comment.
I don't know about hive mind. I think that, I guess in a sense. In a kind of a sense about the way you feel about something, but hive mind sounds bad. Hi, you're on the air.
Hi, thank you for taking my call. I appreciate it.
Where are you?
Hey, I'm doing great. How are you?
No, I said, where are you?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm in Apple Valley, California.
Good. Go ahead.
Okay, so I have a question for you, Sally. I have sickle cell anemia, and which means I'm in pain most of the time, if not every day. And so, but I'm also religious, so I don't smoke, and I've never used an illegal drug, or I don't drink. But I've been growing more curious about the benefits medicinally of marijuana. So I'm ignorant on the subject. What other ways can you take it other than smoking it or putting it in a brownie that would benefit someone in chronic pain without getting high?
Okay. Oh, without getting high?
Without getting high, that's difficult to avoid that piece of it because the active component, the majority of the active component in cannabis is psychoactive. For pain, the CBD, which is a cannabidiol, is not psychoactive, and that does work with pain. But again, there has to be, not has to be, but it's better with a little bit of THC to sort of activate or to make you feel the best that you can. So there are pills you can take, right? So there's oil that you can ingest so you wouldn't have to smoke it or eat it, but you still might feel high. You can function. It would be you can achieve a functional high, but you would still be high.
Interesting.
So you think whatever benefit you might get from it would be offset by God's punishment?
No. I just am very much like being in control of my, myself and my mind and where my mind is.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea of getting high, I guess you could say it sounds frightening because I've never been high, and there's a certain measure of control that is lost, I would think.
That's a fair comment. Sally, how do you respond to that?
I would say that's very fair, and that's, I don't have religious reasons, but I'm a control freak. That's why I don't use THC regularly. I don't smoke marijuana regularly because I've got a lot of work to do. I'm a control freak. but it's still an amazing drug. And I will say, I just want to back up a little. You could get some relief from just taking the CBD, right? You wouldn't have to necessarily have THC. It would be worth experimenting to see if any of your pain went away, because it does have a strong anti-inflammatory effect, to just try the CBD oil.
Okay. Anyway, is this a debate that we should have in America, Sally? And by debate, I mean, should we debate alcohol use versus marijuana? Is that worthy to have? In other words, we know how damaging alcohol is. We know what it does to everything, to the number of people in jail, the drunk driving arrests, the people killed. We know about alcohol. So is that a debate there should be, or what?
Well, for me, it's part of a debate because people can relate to alcohol. People understand alcohol. And when you can relate marijuana in terms of alcohol, it's safer. It's not toxic to your liver. You won't have a hangover, all of those things. People start thinking about it. I like to say it's customary for me, if I'm going to a dinner party, to bring as a hostess gift a bottle of wine. Where does that come from, right? That can, if you drink too much alcohol, you can die.
Sure.
Why can't I bring a couple joints? It's just a matter of changing the mindset. And by comparing marijuana to alcohol, it opens up people's minds a little bit because they're attaching it to something that they understand.
Maybe this will seem like a silly question, Sally, but a lot of people in the audience have never smoked marijuana. If you were to describe the way it works, the high that you get from marijuana, or the effect that you get from marijuana, from the moment you smoke, how would you describe what you feel?
Again, Art, that's such a hard question because it depends on if you're smoking a sativa or an indica. So if you're smoking a sativa, you're suddenly going to be firing on all cylinders. Your brain's going to get active. You're going to be creative, possibly.
Right.
You're going to start thinking thoughts that you may suddenly think that you're, Albert Einstein, right? You're, oh my gosh, I have so many things to think about. If I'm smoking an indica, then I'll say, wow, I'm tired, or I'm so relaxed right now. I feel so good. So it just depends on what type of marijuana you're smoking. But if you're smoking it, the results are fairly instant, right? So you're not, as opposed to edibles where there's a 2-hour delay in effect. You can feel it pretty quickly, and your high doesn't last forever. So it goes away fairly quickly too. So you have a very easy way to determine how high you are.
Okay, so typically, for somebody who just takes a puff or two, how long does that high last, would you say? I know everything varies.
Everyone metabolizes it differently, but I would say 1 to 2 puffs maybe last you an hour, half an hour, depending on your tolerance.
All right. And then when you're not high any longer, everybody knows about alcohol, right? You either get sick and throw up and hug the bowl, or you get a really bad headache and don't like light noise near you. What happens as the marijuana goes away?
You're not high anymore. That's it. You may get a little dry mouth, right? People experience dry mouth. But typically there's no hangover.
So in other words, it just fades away.
Fades away.
Yeah, I get it. All right. Let's see. Where do we go? Back to New Jersey. You're on the air with Sally.
Hi, Art. I love you. Sally, the question I have is related to Monsanto. Monsanto is growing marijuana with glyphosate in South America.
Are we going to have this problem with the tape again tonight?
And obviously, market. So you're doing your biodiversity, doing biodiversity where you are now with the
Well, while we're trying to get that fixed, let's open the chest we do have thus far. 5,000. Another 5,000. Chest will have between 4 and 6. There's a low one at 42.
Be overtaken
and 56
by this corporation eventually. And the other thing about it is it's going to kill people.
If I remember this person's question correctly, he's calling about Monsanto actually in 2015 was growing marijuana in South America.
In the sense that it's going to more disease, just like glyphosate is with and what Monsanto.
All right, well, you're into a whole other thing there, sir, and you're obviously not happy with that. But to say that they're going to take over the marijuana growing and then it's going to be killing people is just outrageous.
Well, I think it's related to GMOs and that type of pushback from that.
I do too.
I don't think there's a place for GMOs in marijuana. There's a lot of that can be done without entering into that realm. So I don't know what the future is.
He was kind of on another agenda there. How about Oklahoma? Hello.
Yes, my name is JD in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yes.
Well, I'm native, and I have two questions about all this.
Yes.
I'm just curious about, how will, since we are allowed to grow this on our reservations and land, since Oklahoma is considered a reservation, will that in fact impact the marijuana industry at the partners? Because I don't less than 10,000.
Let me work on that tape again. This question coming from Tulsa, Oklahoma, referring more to natives being able to, within native sovereign land, grow marijuana there, and he's wondering how it will relate, work with, and or affect like marijuana growers in Colorado. If I remember the question correctly, which is weird because most of these I don't fully listen through before I put them up and just have them play while playing Hero Wars here in episode 3 of each day from day 1. This one, though, I did actually happen to listen through because when I saw the label, I just wrote legal marijuana on it. I was like, really? So I stopped it down, listened to it for the entire runtime of the show, and I was like, I better
and we have a little bit of money and we're looking to invest it. Would we be better off as a silent partner or growing our own as our own?
And if I can get this tape fixed, I will bring it back. I ain't going to bring back the Monsanto guy, but I will bring back this Tulsa question. Because this one is a fair question. To ask. In the way at least I read the question, he's more referring to kind of like how some native areas now grow their own tobacco and have the native brands of cigarettes.
Private industry, and as seen as a sanity.
And he's trying to refer to whether it'd be better just to go ahead and either be a supplier to regular dispensaries like the one in Colorado, or to make their own and sell their own under their own brand. Let me see. I think I'm crossing my fingers. I think I've got this tape working again. Let's see.
Is on our.
Yeah, it is. Let me take it. I think it is. Let me see if I can take it back without it going crazy on me.
Yes, my name is JD.
Alright, I think it's going to let me do it. Alright.
And the other thing about it is, it's going to kill...
This is the end of the Monsanto guy. I'm sorry, I can't cue exactly. But we'll just pick it up from there with the tape working again.
People in multiple ways. Now, in the sense that it's going to make more disease, just like glyphosate is with the GMO and what Monsanto...
All right, well, you're off into a whole nother thing there, sir, and you're obviously not happy with Monsanto. Have at it, but to say that they're going to take over the marijuana growing and then it's going to be killing people is just outrageous. Sally?
Well, I think it's related to GMOs and that type of pushback from that.
I do too.
I don't think there's a place for GMOs in marijuana. There's a lot of genetics that can be done without entering into that realm. So I don't know what the future is.
He was kind of on another agenda there. Let's go to, let's see. How about Oklahoma? Hello.
Yes, my name is JD in Tulsa, Oklahoma.
Yes.
Well, I'm full-blood Native American, and I have two questions about all this.
Yes?
I'm just curious about, how will the Native American tribes, since we are allowed to grow this on our reservations and land, since Oklahoma is considered a reservation, will that in fact impact the marijuana industry as silent partners? Because I belong to a small tribe, less than 10,000 members, and we have a little bit of money and we're looking to invest it. Would we be better off as a silent partner or growing our own as our own private industry? And as I've seen as a Santee Sioux in South Dakota are opening their own marijuana resort. So
yeah, that's a tough question.
We're really torn on this because we see that it's benefiting so many people, but at the same time, we don't want to catch the bad rap just because we're innovators or, want to be silent partners. We're looking at, what we can do to basically help our people, to help the United States, because we don't look at marijuana as a bad thing. We look at it as like peyote. That's what it is,
but I'm not clear on, sir. I'm not totally clear on what you're asking. You're saying,
Art. Just one quick thing before we get back to you. He referred to the Santee Sioux tribe in South Dakota. They actually did. This was, remember, originally in 2015. They did not go through with it. Instead, they actually made a casino on the Nebraska side of their tribal land, and it's called the Ohia Casino, is what they decided to do instead of the marijuana resort.
Saying because you're on a reservation, you can grow marijuana legally.
Yes,
is that correct?
The United States government gave every Native American tribe the right to grow marijuana and sell it, but we're kind of looking like, do we want to sell it? Do we want to grow it?
I've got you. All right, listen, hold on, sir. Hold on. And Sally, hold on. These are really good questions, and I'm interested in a good answer if there can be one. Sally Vanderveer is my guest. We're talking marijuana. Stay right where you are. What a program, huh?
Damn it, if I remembered it was up against commercial break, I would have waited for the commercial break to give the Ohia Santee Sioux information. Damn it. That's what happens when you're trying to follow to get an old tape to continue to work, and then you go like, oh yeah, there was a commercial break, and boy, I botched that. Alright, again, just waiting for the music bumper to be over before we resume with their programming.
The desert doesn't screen calls. We trust you, but remember, the NSA, well, to call the show, please dial 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-CALL ART.
Once a night, that makes me feel much better. Sally Vanderveer is my guest. She is president of Medicine Man, one of the largest and most successful marijuana cultivation dispensaries in Colorado, where it's legal. 99.9% anyway. The feds have their fingers here and there, of course, but 99.9% legal. What do you think, Sally? How long will it be before the rest of the country decides enough is enough and it's legal across America?
Wow, that's a big question, isn't it?
Yes.
My hope is 2 years, but that's probably wishful thinking on my part.
I'd say so.
Yeah, maybe 5 years.
Okay, that's better. All right, I've still got this caller on, and I am curious about this. It's very curious. I mean, he's on a reservation, right? So I guess the laws are a little different. They can grow it, but what to do with it, right, caller?
Yes, sir. I'm just curious, what do you think Native American tribes, how and will they affect the industry since we are able to grow it according to the United States government? And how do you see the industry changing as tribes becoming silent partners or investors, or even as the Santee Sioux tribe, who has opened their own marijuana resort that is supposed to open New Year's Eve 2016?
Marijuana resort. It's a heck of an interesting question. How would you think they would best proceed, Sally?
Well, I see it's a unique opportunity, right? The tribal sovereignty laws means that reservation affairs are reservation affairs. So from a business perspective, certainly, the Santee Sioux have a great idea. They'll have economic benefits of probably about $2 million a month. Mm-hmm. And they can, I read that they're using that to improve tribal treatment centers. It'll increase employment. I mean, you run the risk, though, of the perception, right? You can go and gamble and smoke on an Indian reservation, but it's nice to know that in states where marijuana is not legal, for people who truly need it as medicine, that it would be an alternative for them. So I'm all about getting the medicine to the people, and if that is one way to do it, certainly there will be those engaging in, just getting high, and that's their prerogative as well. Mm-hmm. But having medicine be available, I think, is important. So if this is one way around it, possibilities.
Well, I see his problem. I really do. I mean, they can grow it, but selling it, it's got to be used on the reservation. Once they're off, it seems to me, hear some sirens behind you, and that'd be that.
Right. I mean, it's scary. There's a huge potential for diversion in that case because they wouldn't be regulated as tightly as we are. I'm assuming they wouldn't be regulated. Hopefully the tribal council would put in effect their own regulations so that they wouldn't get shut down. I know a lot of people, specifically in Wisconsin, do not want this to happen. The government does not want this to happen. So I think there's a lot of battles ahead. I'm not sophisticated enough in the ways of tribal sovereignty rules to even speak further on it. But it will be, like you said, Art, a slippery slope.
Well, they want to increase their economic prospects, but I'm not clear on how they do that. And it's a tough problem. Michael, you're on the air. Hi.
Hi, how you doing?
Fine.
Star out now. I think this is a great topic.
I'm glad you're enjoying it, but you're kind of in and out, Michael, on, I don't know if it's your audio or what.
I want to talk about cannabinoid receptors.
Yes.
How they're not used by any other... I'm getting echo.
Yeah, there's something wrong with this connection, Michael. I'm sorry. What you can try doing... once you get on Skype, there is an echo server. It's called an echo server. So you can just click on that and talk into it, and it will play back your audio to you. So if you're trying to test and get your audio right, use the Skype echo server. And when you've got it right, call back. Marysville something or another. Hello.
Hi, is this me?
Well, only you know that for sure, but it sounds a lot like you,
yeah,
sir.
Hi, Art.
Hi.
Oh, I almost asked how are you doing. I really don't like that. Hey, I'd like to say I'm in California, and marijuana is legal here for medicinal purposes.
Right.
Yeah, but you can go down to Sacramento or Chico or wherever you want, basically, and pay $50 and get a script for absolutely nothing. You don't have to have any kind of pre-existing condition or anything like that. You can just get a script for nothing, so it might as well be legal here.
Well,
Well, they're working toward that. California has been the true Wild West for a long time, and I think that you'll see tighter regulations and more availability to those who need it, and hopefully moving on toward recreational use as well, so you can kind of cut out that the Dr. Mill $50 piece of it that sort of goes against what we in the industry would like to portray ourselves.
You know, it's funny. You would have thought California being the recreational kind of place that, well, it's thought to be, if not in reality, they would have legalized it first there before, for example, Colorado.
Yeah, it's been legal there for a long time, but it was the regulatory environment wasn't strict enough to move it forward as we have in Colorado.
Okay. Let's go to Pomona. Hello.
Mark?
Yes.
So here in California, like the previous caller was saying, it's legal, but the doctors here, the pain management doctors, have a hard time, prescribing you pain medicine and allowing you to do marijuana at the same time. I'm curious if in Colorado, if the doctors there are having an issue with that as well, or if they allow you to be on both pain management or pain medicine and marijuana. In my case, I would prefer to minimize my use of opiates with marijuana, but it's not possible here. If you test positive, they cut you off of both.
Wow.
Okay. Opiates.
All right.
And then I guess one more question for you, Art. Have you tried it for your back pain?
Oh, yeah, sure. I've tried marijuana. I'm 70 years old. What do you think? I went my whole life without trying marijuana.
Does it help your back pain?
You know what? I've actually only found one thing that helps my back pain, and I've got them as an advertiser, and it's that LED affair that you wanted an answer. That's it.
That's because you're not smoking the right strain.
Really? Okay, what should I be smoking?
I don't know that. That's a question for my connoisseur, my bud tenders. But it depends on the type of pain you have. Come to Colorado and we will make that determination for you.
Really? It sounds like a good reason for a trip, actually. So you really think that back pain can be assisted by pot? Of the right kind?
I hear that every day from people in my store. Again, it may not work for you, but I hear it all the time. Herniated discs, post-surgical issues, just general back pain. Depending on the strain, typically a heavy indica will help that.
Right. Well, somebody had to ask, of course. Wilmington, North Carolina, hello.
Hello, Art.
Back there in tobacco country, right?
All right. I have a question for the guest.
Yes, go right ahead.
You mentioned you had to be 21 to buy in our store. I was wondering what you thought about the age limit in Colorado and what you thought about, teenagers smoking marijuana. I know you're both parents. It might be something like we have to do more research on it, but I just wanted to know her thoughts on that.
I think that unless you have a condition that cannot be treated with any other form of medication, that you should not smoke marijuana until you're probably 21 if you're a female and maybe 24 if you're a male. And there's some evidence to support that is true. I don't want my children smoking marijuana until their brains are completely formed. And it can perhaps, again, it's not proven, but I would not want to risk my child's brain on that. That said, there are several patients. In fact, you can purchase marijuana with a medical card at the age of 18 in Colorado, but you have to go to a special medical marijuana store who has there's a lot more privacy issues in place, and we don't offer that at my store because it's a very small percentage of the population, and it requires a lot of restrictions and regulations for your facility.
Right, and what studies they have done, it's always been about the developing brain, right?
It's about the developing brain. So I would say after the age of 24, if you're a male, 21 if you're a female, that would be a good choice for medication. And I would prefer that my children smoke marijuana rather than drinking alcohol any day.
Oh, yes.
Again, of course, as a parent, I don't want them to use anything, right? Let's establish that. But if you said, hey, Sally, they're going to do this or this, it would be a no-brainer for me to say, oh, yeah, here's marijuana. Please do that.
Okay. So you really have thought out, Sally, how you're going to address this with your children who know the business you're in after all.
We talk about it all the time, and what a great opportunity for me to have these conversations with my teenagers over the last 5 years, right? They're one's 15, one's 18. So for as long as they have been interested in drugs and these types of things, we've had these conversations at the dinner table. And what I love is that when their friends come over, they're dying to talk to me because they don't have a lot of adults who will talk to them about marijuana.
Of course.
So it's been a great opportunity for my children and their friends.
You know what always has bothered me, Sally, and still bothers me now? We were talking about gateway drugs and that kind of thing earlier.
Mm-hmm.
I always thought that illegal as it was, and still is, in most of the nation, it's a gateway drug, marijuana is, in the sense that if a young person, relatively young person, tries marijuana, and figures out that it's not the horrible devil drug that the government portrayed it to be. And, oh, gee, I didn't go wild. I didn't rob anybody. I didn't whatever. You know, I did not commit mayhem. Once they decided that it was a lie, then it's a gateway drug in the sense that, well, if they lied to me here, then probably they're lying about, you know, all the harder drugs, cocaine, heroin, whatever.
Possibly, and those leaps may be made if you're not having conversations with your children about drugs,
exactly,
about the different types of drugs. So it comes down to responsible parenting, and making sure your children are informed. And I get it, you know, my 18-year-old son is so curious about everything, and I spend all day worrying that he's going to try, you know, whatever the drug of the week is. But I have to trust that I taught him well and informed him about repercussions about doing those types of things.
Well, the truth is a powerful thing. So if you tell your children the truth, they'll figure out eventually that you're giving them good guidance. You're on the air. Hi.
Hi. I have 3 quick questions for you. This is Joe in Pennsylvania. I have possibly an inner ear problem that's causing distortion in everything I hear, and including my own voice.
Well, since you mentioned it, sir, you're actually a little distorted. Your audio.
Oh, yeah, well, that's this phone. I can't do anything about that.
Oh, all right.
That's not you. It's the phone.
Okay.
But would marijuana help in that? And a little bit of, I have a little bit of tinnitus with all that.
Oh God.
Well, that's awful. My father suffers from that. He has Meniere's disease, which is an inner ear issue. And there have been, there's good news with cannabis in that. So do you suffer from intense vertigo or nausea?
No, not at all. I've been tested for Meniere's disease. I don't have that. This was because of an act with feedback from a loud PA speaker.
Oh, wow.
There was other problems before that, but this made it worse.
Well, that's awful. I'm sorry. And I don't know. That's a very specific disorder that I have not come across. I will tell you that the internet is rich with information on marijuana's uses in, you name it, marijuana and blank, and you'll find some stories on that. I wish I could tell you more. If it's related to inflammation, I would say most definitely it would be worth a try. But again, I'm sorry, I don't know much about that.
All right, very quickly, Dino, you're on the air.
Hey, this is Dino here in Roselle, Illinois. You hear me here?
I hear you fine.
Well, actually, you more or less hit it right on the nose when you said the most detrimental thing that has come out of the whole disinformation of marijuana is basically not well. If I had children, I would tell them right off the bat, marijuana is a drug, but compared to the heroin and all this stuff.
Yeah, tell the truth, for God's sakes. Tell your kids the truth. That's the best chance you've got.
It's done nothing but a disservice to everybody. Basically, ever since the prohibition of the 30s with the jazz, the jazz and all that. That's where it all came from. So. The other thing is, it's not a very productive drug and all that, but, excuse me, I'm a little nervous here.
It's not a productive drug. Well, it can be. I mean, it depends on...
It depends on what you smoke.
Yeah, that's right. In other words, you can use it for a variety of productive reasons, I think. Some people consider it to be something that increases creativity. That's no small matter.
We had the Grateful Dead come through our facility last week.
Oh, no kidding.
No kidding. And they've come through before, and Mickey Hart is a good friend. And not only Mickey, but other famous musicians have told me that they are at their most creative and that they tend to write songs when they are smoking or consuming marijuana.
I believe it.
Yeah.
Simple as that. Hello, in Provo, Utah. We're running out of time, but go ahead.
Yeah, hey, is this me?
That's you.
All right. Hey, Sally, I just got a question for you. Kind of a comparison between the legalities of, I guess, marijuana versus cigarettes. Like, why are cigarettes legal, which they have numerous amounts of deaths each year, versus marijuana has, zero amounts of deaths? Like, what?
Well, marijuana will irritate your lungs in sufficient quantities, sir. No question about that. We're coming to the end of the show. But, Sally, if you want to address that.
Well, it has a lot to do with the history and the scare tactics associated with marijuana. So we've all been convinced over the last 80 years that marijuana is bad and dangerous and is going to lead to reefer madness. Everyone's going to kill each other. Tobacco has had a lot of money and a lot of time to engage the American public, and it has become an accepted part, although no one wants to be a smoker, but it's become an accepted part of American culture. So we're working to do the same for marijuana, and certainly it does not have as many detrimental effects as smoking cigarettes. So a strong lobby and a lot of time can do a lot for a product.
Sally Vanderveer, you've been an exceptional guest, and I would hope that they would use this program around the country to educate people about marijuana and how it's going in Colorado where it's legal. It's the best tool that can be spread around to educate people. So you've done a wonderful job. Thank you.
Thank you, Art, for the opportunity. It's been a treat.
All right, take care. Sally Vanderveer. And I mean that. If you know somebody who is involved in this and you just want a good general educational thing on marijuana to send them, I would say this program would be high, no pun intended, on the list from the high desert. Good night.
All right, and I think that's going to be a good place to leave it as that episode ends. Technical difficulties originally with that, to technical difficulties with Nexters. So we'll just leave the day here. We will come back tomorrow to pick up where we left off from day one. Of course, make sure you do like, share, and subscribe to go ahead and get us to those goals for both Boxy and Nexters. We definitely do appreciate you all for being around. And of course, until next time, it's always a great day, great new world to release the Krakens. Please like, share, and subscribe. We'll see you all tomorrow.